You ever stop to think about what would happen if Imu, the real king of the world, who's been pulling strings from the shadows for 900 years, just straight up stole Luffy's devil fruit? Like, what would the world government do if they had Joy Boy's power, the power of freedom itself, in the hands of the actual devil? And the real question that matters, could Luffy still become king of the pirates without being a rubber man? No Gear 5, no gears at all? Today, we're diving headfirst into this theory. And fair warning, the One Piece world would go into complete meltdown. And there's a twist buried in this story involving the fruit's own will that no fan sees coming. Keep that in mind. I'm Shoyo, and if you're into these what-if stories from the One Piece universe, drop a like, hit subscribe, and comment which crazy theory you want to see next. Let's get into it. To understand how a heist this big would even go down, we first need to look at who Imu actually is. He's not some random villain who wants to take over an island. This guy has been alive for 8 centuries. In chapter 1179, in this hypothetical scenario, we got a glimpse of his true form in Elbaf. Lunarian features, horns, a tail, and a conqueror's haki, so thick and suffocating that the trees around him literally started growing faces of pure agony. Just being near him warps reality. And this guy knows exactly how dangerous the Hito Hito no Mi model Nika really is. He went up against Joy Boy during the Void Century. He knows that if Luffy fully awakens that fruit and hits the peak of Gear 5, the chess game he's been running for 800 years is just over. So for someone who spent centuries moving the Gorosei around like chess pieces, actually deciding to step in himself isn't impulsive. It's calculated desperation. Imu realizes he can't trust admirals or CP0 anymore. For the first time in 800 years, he feels like he has to handle this personally. But there's a problem. How do you even take a devil fruit from a living user without killing them and risking the fruit randomly respawning somewhere across the world? Imu has a dark method for that, an 800-year-old secret I'll get to in just a sec. Imu's not dumb enough to go at Luffy when he's at full strength. The perfect moment the world government picks is right after the Egghead incident. Luffy is completely wrecked. He just went through Lucci, the Seraphim, traded blows with Kizaru and Saturn. Gear 5 drained every last drop of his energy. He's on the ground, totally vulnerable, looking like an old man with the fruit basically in a deep sleep inside him. It's the only opening they're gonna get. Kizaru, already on the island, gets a direct order from the highest authority, bypassing even the 5 elders. Neutralize the Straw Hat and separate the fruit from his body. Now, the attack isn't meant to kill. Kizaru fires a condensed light beam with surgical precision straight into Luffy's chest. But how do you actually separate a devil fruit from a living user? This is where Imu's secret comes in. As the user of the original devil fruit, the prototype that all other fruits supposedly came from Imu understands the inner workings of fruits better than Vegapunk ever could. He uses Kizaru as a channel to send a specific haki frequency that severs the connection between Luffy's soul and the fruit. The Hito Hito no Mi gets ripped out. Kizaru bolts with it at the speed of light, and Luffy wakes up. He's breathing, he's alive. But when he tries to stretch his arm to reach his hat, nothing happens. The power that defined him since he was a kid is just gone. Except the world government made a fatal mistake by bringing that fruit to Mary Joyce. A mistake they won't figure out until it's way too late. Stay with me. Up at the top of the red line in Mary Joyce, Imu receives the fruit and eats it. What happens next chills even the Gorosei to the bone. Physically, Imu gains everything. The rubber, the insane durability, the ability to reshape the environment around him. But here's the dark twist. Gear 5 doesn't activate at all. No drums of liberation, just dead silence. The reason is conceptual. Nika's power is the purest, most chaotic form of freedom that exists. Imu is literally the living embodiment of control, slavery, and oppression. The fruit, which has its own will, flat out refuses to fully surrender itself. The result isn't Luffy's joy, it's something twisted and wrong. Imu uses the rubber to crush and warp matter with cold, surgical cruelty. He tries to pull off a Bajrang gun, but the hit comes out lifeless, soulless, just focused on mass destruction. For a god who's dictated the rules of the world for 800 years, feeling that rejection inside his own chest is unbearable. The Gorosei watch in shock, because they realize the truth. The fruit doesn't recognize Imu. It already chose its person. And somewhere out on the ocean, it's calling for him. Don't get it twisted though. Imu is not weak. An immortal being with the original fruit and now the defensive perks of rubber becomes the most unbreakable wall the One Piece universe has ever seen. So with that level of insane power in the villain's hands, how could Luffy, now powerless, even think about going toe-to-toe with him? The answer involves Silver's Rayleigh and a secret about Goldie Roger that changes everything. We'll get there. Back on the Straw Hat ship, the vibe is like a funeral. Chopper is losing his mind trying to figure out why the captain's whole metabolism just changed. Nami is crying, clutching the mast. Robin is in complete shock. The power that saved her at Ini's lobby doesn't exist anymore. But it's Zoro who cuts through the silence. Hand on his sword, he looks Luffy dead in the eyes and keeps it real. They might have stolen your fruit, but they can't steal who you are. And Luffy just laughs that same laugh, but we all know it hurts. The rubber has been his identity since he was 7 years old. That fruit is why Shanks lost his arm saving him. Losing the rubber is losing the first thing that ever connected him to the world of pirates. But people forget one key thing. Luffy was never strong just because of the fruit. He has all 3 types of haki at the highest possible level. He was trained by Silver's Rayleigh, and it's the Dark King himself who intercepts the crew out at sea, sensing that Luffy's energy is off. Rayleigh isn't the patient teacher from Rusakaina anymore. He's got urgency in his eyes. He sits down with Luffy and drops the most carefully guarded secret in the seas. Roger didn't have a devil fruit. Roger conquered the Grand Line, went head to head with Whitebeard, read the poneglyphs, and laughed at the One Piece using nothing but pure haki and an unbreakable will. Luffy lets that sink in. When he tries to fight in the days that follow, he bleeds. He takes hits from weaker attacks because his body still instinctively expects to bounce bullets or tank blunt force. He has to relearn how to move from scratch. Without rubber to stretch his arms and build momentum, Luffy has to go all in on mastering Advanced Conqueror's haki and his raw base speed. The crew figures out fast they can't keep counting on the Sun God to swoop in and save everybody. Zoro gets it. If the captain got nerfed, the responsibility of being the main shield goes up. He stops thinking of himself as second strongest and trains to be the strongest, unlocking a level of control over Enma and Conqueror's haki that would have taken years otherwise. Sanji maxes out his Germa genetics and Ifrit Jambe. He has to be the fastest guy on the sea to cover the blind spots Luffy now has in close combat. Robin digs into the poneglyphs in a completely different way. She stops researching the gods and focuses on the man. What did Joy Boy do when the fruit wasn't enough? The news of the heist of the century doesn't stay quiet for long. Morgans plasters it on the front page and the whole world loses it. At Marine HQ, Akainu goes ballistic. He hates pirates, but he hates being played like a puppet even more. Finding out the Gorosei use an admiral not for justice, but to steal power for themselves, that starts cracking the Marines from the inside. The spark of an internal rebellion lights up right there. Shanks doesn't negotiate. No visit to Mary Joise. The Red Hair's answer is to declare open war. He mobilizes the entire fleet. Monkey D. Dragon finally finds his perfect trigger. The government stole the power from the son of the world's most wanted man. The propaganda writes itself. The Revolutionary Army goes on full offensive against the Celestial Dragons. And in the middle of all this chaos, the Cross Guild is trying to cash in. Crocodile selling weapons to both sides, while Blackbeard just smiles. The Yami Yami no Mi cancels out powers. He knows Imu is now a user. Teach changes his route, not to help Luffy, but with the completely unhinged goal of stealing the Nika Fruit straight from the king of the world himself. Time passes. Luffy, now fighting in a completely hand-to-hand style, wrapped in dark haki, closes in on Elbaf. And back in Mary Joise, something unsettling starts happening. The fruit inside Imu begins pulsing on its own, not physically, spiritually. The Hito Hito no Mi has a will. It spent 800 years dodging the world government, always slipping through their fingers. Now it's trapped inside the antithesis of everything it stands for. When Luffy gets close to the Elbaf area, the fruit senses his conqueror's haki. Imu has a spasm. For the first time in centuries, he feels a pain in his chest that he didn't cause. The fruit is literally trying to tear itself out of his soul to get back to its real owner. Desperation kicks in. Imu orders a triple buster call on Elbaf and personally teleports to the battlefield. The goal is simple. The kid in the straw hat needs to turn to dust before the connection between the fruit, and that kid gets too strong to break. They meet on the land of giants. Right off the bat, it's a slaughter. Imu, running the original fruit, combined with rubber's durability and a millennium of haki, is just unstoppable. Zoro gets launched, Sanji's leg gets fractured. Dory and Brogy go down. Luffy and Imu lock eyes. Luffy charges with no gears, no stretching. He throws a punch loaded with the highest concentration of armament and conqueror's haki he's ever pushed out in his life. Pure desperation and pure Rayleigh training. Luffy's fist slams into Imu's dark rubber defense. The sky over Elbaf splits in 3. The impact is so absurd the whole island shakes, and that's where the One Piece magic kicks in. The fruit recognizes who's on the other side of that punch. Luffy's life force, his joy, his stubbornness, the whole essence of his freedom, it reaches the fruit through his haki. Imu's eyes go wide as the rubber in his body starts to melt and glow in that warm, golden yellow light. The same warmth Zunisha felt back in Wano. The drums of liberation start beating, but not inside Luffy. They're reverberating through the air between them. Imu tries to pull back. He can't. Luffy doesn't stop throwing hands. With the force of peak conqueror's haki crashing into the conflicted fruit over and over, the transfer happens. The fruit rejects Imu's soul, rips the force bond apart, and gets pulled back into Luffy right there on the battlefield. No slow transition, no adjustment period. Luffy had already awakened this fruit before. His hair goes white instantly. His clothes change. The whole environment in Elbaf turns to rubber. Imu stumbles back a few steps, and the look on the face of the supreme ruler is no longer arrogance. For the first time in 800 years, Imu feels fear. Luffy now at his absolute peak, with haki sharpened to a razor's edge by everything he went through without his power. Plus the sun god fruit that chose him for good flashes that wide grin. The real final battle for the fate of the One Piece world has just begun. begun. This whole hypothetical story shows something really important about how genius Eiichiro Oda actually is. Luffy's strength was never the fruit. The fruit was just the vessel. The Hiro Hiro no Mi chose him, waited for him, and rejected the most powerful being in the world. For one reason, Luffy is the only person on the seas who holds that kind of absolute power in his hands and just wants to use it to throw a big party and eat meat with his friends. He doesn't want to rule anything. He just wants to be the freest man in the world. And that's exactly why, even without the rubber, he'd still step up and go at the king of the world. But now the question goes to you guys. Who stuck around to the end? After breaking down this whole journey, do you think it was the devil fruit that made Luffy special the whole time? Or was Luffy always the chosen guy and the fruit just gave him a little boost? Drop your take in the comments because I genuinely read and talk through them with you all. And if you're feeling this style of video, throw your ideas down there for the next what if you want me to cover on the channel. I'm Shoyo, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.